The Vex, one of the most misunderstood parts of Destiny. It's not that we lack material. It's not that we lack places that we've been to. It's not even that we lack on-screen stuff. It's that the Vex have genuinely been the most misunderstood race in the time that they've been in Destiny. And you know what? That does not surprise me one bit. So, we're here to change that. First, what are the Vex? They're not robots. They are living abominations made into reality. They act cyborgish. They act like they're robots, but they're life forms. Sentient, living life forms. Unlike other life forms, the Vex do not procreate. The Vex were made. They were optimized. They were created for the specific focus of being the most dominant life form in all of creation. And for a time, they were. Their creator, who I'll talk about later in the video, won every iteration of the flower game. To keep it simple, the flower game is the dawn of the universe and the end of the universe. The Vex won every iteration of the flower game. It was only until the more recent times of the flower game have the Vex truly been defeated and taken off the title as the strongest with something else to substitute them in their place. The Vex are terrifying. When the Vex saw what happened, they ran away from their creator. It's unknown how many of the unknown Vex are still around in creation, but what we do know is the Vex more than likely are the oldest of all races. If there's anything that knows the life, death, rebirth, and resetting of the universe, it would be the Vex. They would have all the knowledge regarding creation. Once the Vex entered the cosmology, the dynamic completely changed for them forever. Half the Vex, or more, remain in the Vex worlds. The other half of the Vex were sent to reality for a specific purpose, a specific goal. Those are the Vex we commonly see. We're not in the Vex worlds all that often, so there's a lot more that we could discover about them. However, that is not to be the case at this moment in time. The Vex did not have it easy, though. One misconception people have is the Vex are all fully unified. That's not the truth. They all share the same purpose, the same goal, which is to be the only ones left, so that nothing else can threaten them. But they all disagree on how to do it. There's different sects of Vex within the solar system, beyond the solar system, beyond the physical universe, and well, beyond the conventional cosmology. And we even have Vex who disagree with each other in the Vex worlds. The sole divisive Vex, as an example, are the extreme outliers. They gave themselves to darkness because they rationally justified to themselves that the only way to outlast everything was to give yourself to the witness. To some extent, they're correct. However, they became very unusual towards other Vex. They became fanatical. They became violent. They became very confrontational. They acted like freaking Asian hornets. It's ridiculous. The sole divisive Vex, while in some form can rationally justify their decisions, to everyone else, they're freaking crazy. They're nuts. They're insane. They're the most religious faction of all in the Destiny cosmos by far. No other race is that zealously religious. And that's just one sect of Vex. We have many others who focus on different parts of creation, and they're interesting as well. Panoptes, his set of Vex, made a bunch of universes to see which would give them the best outcome possible. Atheon, from the Vault of Glass. The Vault of Glass is basically his throne world, and he was to become the nexus point, or the center of all time, even outside of his own, well, throne world, so to speak, the Vault of Glass. Before I continue, there's going to be questions on what the Vault of Glass and what the Infinite Forest are. The Vault of Glass and the Infinite Forest are the seeds that the Vex implant in the planets, and inside they become realities. So the planet itself is being parasitically attached to by the Vex. See, the planets themselves are fine, but it's when the Vex come by with all their stuff to infect the planet and basically turn it into a Vex machine is when things are not so cash money. With the Vex, they want to outlast everything. They understand where they're beat, but if they had things their way, there would be no light. There would be no dark. There would just be the Vex. And as you can imagine, they lack a moral compass. So the way they would achieve their goals are quite violent and creatively brutal. What the Vex do is to local cosmos, planet, person, technology, it doesn't matter. They will infect it on the most fundamental level possible, turn it into a Vex, and assimilate that into the collective. Yes, you heard that right. The Vex will slowly and quite brutally turn you into one of themselves. It's very gradual. Your DNA changes, you grow Vex parts, you slowly hear the thoughts of other Vex, and slowly over time, you become part of the collective. But it's not without pain. In fact, it's the most agonizing pain imaginable. You're being slowly turned into a Vex, and they're attacking you, your molecules, your atoms, organs, bones, you name it. It's all attacking you. And by the way, they can go after your ghost as well, and that's happened before. Even if you are a guardian, you are not safe. And to translate this back to the Vex worlds, specifically where the Vault of Glass, Infinite Forest, and where the various pyramidions are, what the Vex did is they forcefully implanted those seeds into the planets and changed the DNA and everything imaginable of that planet to assimilate that into the collective, so that those planets are then turned into Vex machines, and those machines serve the purposes of the Vex inside the physical universe. The Vault of Glass, as I stated earlier, Atheon was to eventually not only be the focus of all time in the Vault, but eventually become strong enough to become the center of all time in the universe, and then eventually become the center of all time in the entire cosmology. Now, this isn't to say Atheon can do that, it's to say that if you left Atheon alone, that would have been their goal, and possibly, although I don't have the evidence to, it is still technically possible to say that Atheon could have done it if left alone, because that's how potent the Vex are. Same with the Infinite Forest. The Infinite Forest found a way for the Vex to outlast the light and dark itself, all of creation. We don't know if they can outlast the Witness, but we know they can at least outlast everything else in the universe, according to the Infinite Forest. So that's what we had to do. We had to stop the Vex from eventually being the only ones in the universe who will survive. Because if they achieved their goal, there would be nothing left to protect, or really you wouldn't be around either. See, it's like this. The Vex all disagree on everything. But it's when one of them finds a solution to their problem that the rest of them catch on. So we have to go and beat that Vex. Because if we don't beat that Vex, very bad things will happen. The Vex themselves, though, that doesn't explain their identity. As I explained earlier, the Vex are robotic organisms who are cyborgs. They have emotions, at least what they view as emotions. They have specific purposes. They have goals. And they have the ambition to achieve it. The problem with the Vex is, up until now, they've lacked a figurehead. There's no one person we can attach to the Vex who has a stated identity, who has a character that we can remember, and is recognizable in any way. The main reason for that, although I consider it a writing flaw, is this. The Vex themselves base their existence on a gambit, which is to outlast everything in creation. They're willing to sacrifice themselves to do it because some other Vex may achieve that outcome. The Vex Collective, they create a mind with an ideal, a purpose, a literal concept. They bring that into reality, and that being who became a part of the cosmos, or your Atheons, your Panoptes, your Brachians, your sanctified minds, your Quarias, so on and so forth. They were created with a purpose. Their literal concept for existing is to achieve this one thing. Atheon was the literal concept of time. Panoptes was the literal concept of space. Quaria was the dream that was to exist outside of reality. Quaria was to exist in a world that isn't physical, one that you can only describe as dreaming, which is the ascendant plane. That's what the Vex would treat as dreaming, because the ascendant plane is weird to them. So Quaria was made, so that the Vex could learn about the plane. When you put all this stuff together, you realize that while the Vex Collective is a thing, and they all share the same ambition, you begin to realize that there's more nuance within the various sub-factions of Vex, and they all have different ideas of how they want to achieve their purpose. Because, first off, how do we know it's not just that specific sect of Vex from the Vex worlds just thinking this is the best possible solution, so they send that mind out to go and do it? How do we know it's not just that? How do we know it's not the Vex Collective collectively agreeing to send this mind out to go and achieve the purposes of the collective? That's the weird part in this entire analysis. The part I would say is speculative about the Vex. With that out of the way, the whole point is this. The Vex cosmos in the physical universe is actually quite easy to understand. We have the infinite forest, we have the vault of glass, we have the Pyramidion, which bridges to other timelines, which in of themselves, the Pyramidions contain these things called infinite dimensions, or Hilbert spaces.
You should now be entering a Hilbert space, if the Taken have not misaligned the Pyramidion space geometric intuitions.
Gesundheit.
I did not sneeze, you fool. It is an infinite dimensional functional space. The Vex often... Oh, why am I wasting my breath?
To keep it simple and without getting into jargon, Hilbert spaces are a part of a specific multiverse model. But that's not the point. The whole overall point is the Vex use these large spaces to store information. The Pyramidion, Vault of Glass, Infinite Forest, every other Pyramidion along with that and the Vex worlds, they're all libraries and they all store information. And that information can then be sent back to the Vex domain, where the Vex can do something with that information and then advance their plans. On that note, what is the Vex domain? The Vex domain, it's like the Vex version of the Ascendant Plane. The Vex domain is a world or set of worlds where the Vex go that are beyond the physical limitations of existence. It is there in the Vex domain that the Vex can use their true power and bring anything they wish into reality itself. These things they bring into reality are as real as the person sitting beside you in your home or all the people in the city you're in. That is how real the Vex make their simulations. When they make a universe as a simulation, it is a literal universe that would be the size of the one created by the very Big Bang itself. Then, far deeper inside the Vex domain, we have these set of worlds that belong to individual Vex. These Vex are strong enough to own their own parts of the Vex domain. And then to get even crazier, Quoria Blade Transform initiated the Endless Night. The Endless Night was a complete and utter conquering of the majority of the entirety of the Vex domain. All the Vex within the Vex domain were under the control of Quoria. Quoria was, to the Vex network, what Oryx is to the Hive. Now, to be clear, Quoria never became as powerful as the Hive gods. However, they still were very impressive when they took over almost the entire cosmology of the Vex. Really. It's after Quoria that we don't get much. And then comes Final Shape, and we have it. Finally, the narrative critique that the Vex have no one leading them, that we have no one to remember the Vex by. It is finally in episode Echoes that we get the one thing to address our criticism. A figurehead. Her name is Maya Sundaresh. She goes by the name The Conductor. She has something called the Echo of Command. This puts her around the current cast, because well before that, she was just a normal human being, or Exo. They couldn't do all the stuff Guardians or other physically capable people could do. No, not at all. But it was when she got the Echo that she obtained power of her own, finally. And then the Vex became important again. The Vex started gaining individuality, self-sentience, not just the barest form of sentience that allowed them to contribute to the collective, being little better than bees, a bit with far more complexity in comparison to such insects. When the Vex started gaining individuality, things changed for them forever. In fact, it is so much of a change to the point that we still don't understand how huge of a difference the Conductor made for the Vex when she entered the world of the Vex, to put it metaphorically, and changed them. There's even some Vex that are friendly with Guardians, which means we may have ally Vex in the future, although it is unknown at this time if we will, because we simply lack the information, and well, Edge of Fate and future expansions haven't come out yet. It is June the 13th by the time I'm making this video, so hopefully things go well for the Vex in the future. But, to give a conclusion for the Vex, it goes like this. The Vault of Glass, the Infinite Forest, and the various Pyramidians in the solar system and beyond the solar system are just tools to the Vex. The Vex network is far more complex as space compared to the three things I just mentioned. And then deep within the Vex network, you have Vex who own their own worlds, or throne worlds to keep it simple. And then you have Quoria Blade Transform, who's the most impressive one of them all, literally conquering the cosmos for itself. Granted, it did it for Savathun, but it still conquered the cosmos. And then beyond Quoria, we have the Conductor. The Conductor does important stuff for the Vex now, so now she's the most impressive Vex. And it's only with the Conductor that things have changed, so hopefully things change for the better for the Vex in the future. The only other thing left to mention is, what about the Vex who stayed with their creator? What about the Vex who left? What about the Vex who came home? Where does the conductor fit in with the rest of those Vex? We don't know anything about the Vex past what we've gotten at this point, which is, oh, hey, they're dangerous, they're gonna do certain thing. And then you have the conductor who's finally fleshing out the Vex as a race. That being said, that still doesn't address the fact that we don't know anything about the other Vex beyond the scope of the cosmology.